These men and women are the backbone of our evolving foreign policy. From civil wars to sectarian violence. From trade conflicts to economies looking inwards. They tackle emerging global issues and shape and redefine foreign policy. What does it mean to be a diplomat? What makes a diplomat? We talk to the men and women who are on the hot seat. This is the Diplomacy Show.
Welcome to the Diplomacy Show, where we look at the context behind the text, the meaning behind special events and gestures, the historical and geopolitical compulsions behind foreign policy decisions. Our focus today is on Uzbekistan. Tashkent, Samarkand, Bukhara are names of well-known places in India's cultural and political history. The Silk Route went through this region. Buddhism from India to Asia's Far East, to China, Japan and elsewhere also went through this region. The founder of the Mughal dynasty in India, Babur, came from the Andijan province or Fargana Valley in Uzbekistan. Today we have a sister state relationship between Andijan and Gujarat. Monuments in India, in Delhi, Agra, Fatehpur Sikri have similarities with monuments that we find in Uzbekistan, and there is now a sister city relationship between Agra and Samarkand. Uzbekistan itself has seen a history of Turkic, Persian, Arab, Russian, Mongol influences over time. India has worked to build a relationship with Uzbekistan as it was earlier a part of the Soviet Union since 1921, and then it became an independent country after 1991, after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. As Uzbekistan became independent, there was a renewed effort to build connectivity, to work on regional connectivity, and to build on the cultural links between India and Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan, in defining its new identity, has also to deal with the legacy of Soviet-Russian influence, the increasing economic and political presence of China, and its new relationships with other countries in Central Asia, in Afghanistan, Iran, and also in South Asia. To discuss all these, we have today as our special guest the Ambassador of Uzbekistan. Ambassador Farhod Arziev, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You've now been in India for about 2 years. And after coming to India, you have seen the cultural and other aspects of life in India. Maybe it reminded you of some of the things that you saw in Uzbekistan. So what were your impressions here as you came? Did you find a lot of similarities, a lot of differences? How did you relate to that?
Thank you very much for your invitation to your program. I'm very happy to be here today. Yes, indeed. I must tell you that I am here as an ambassador almost 2 years, but it is not my first time that I'm being in India.
When were you here earlier?
My first encounter with India happened 1996 when I was a student, and I participated in an exchange program at the Indian Institute of Mass Communication. So that gives me the advantage of making some comparisons what was at that time and now when I came after almost 20 years. And I must tell that I have witnessed a tremendous change in terms of development in the country. And now, India is, one of the fastest developing countries in the world. And as my personal experience suggests, I can see it everywhere, on the streets, in the when I visit the different in the factories, the companies, when you even go to cultural places, shopping malls, you can feel these dynamics everywhere. And of course, you are rightly mentioned, India and Uzbekistan. We have a lot of commonalities, similarities, and there is reason for that, because Uzbekistan and India, the peoples of Uzbekistan and India, we share centuries old history. We share common values, we share common culture, common traditions.
So what are some of the cultural similarities that you have noticed?
You have already mentioned that about the legacy of the Kushana period when the Buddhism was spread from India through part of Central Asia, Uzbekistan, to the other part of the world. So indeed, if you look at the different the angles, whether it is the legacy from history, or if you talk about literature, for example, the famous the poets, some of the famous poets who traveled from Uzbekistan, their ancestors traveled to India, and of course, if we talk about just the language, for example, we have more than 4,000 identical, the words which carry the similar meaning, like you call Mehman, we also call Mehman Aziz, and Asman.
Yes, I remember way back in 1981, I had the opportunity to visit Tashkent, and at that time when it was part of the Soviet Union, what impressed me was all over the place you could see chai khana. And so that's where people went to meet each other, have conversations and drink tea. So again, it reminded me a lot about India. Does the chai khana have a particular place in Uzbek life and culture?
Yes, indeed. Your observation is quite right. We have, I could say, very strong tea culture. So whenever you visit any Uzbek family in Uzbekistan, so the first the offer would be, let's have a cup of tea. And when it comes to chai khanas, this is we can say it's sort of part of our the society, and it's a sort of social institution also, where people.
And do you normally drink black tea or green tea, or what is the kind of tea that people drink?
It depends on the regions. So it's, for example, in Tashkent, the black tea is the popular, and of course the most popular black tea is from India. So I should tell you that for many years, whenever you talk about the black tea, so people, especially the elder generation, they associate it with the image of elephant. So on the box of black tea, usually there was the elephant. And it was considered always the best quality of in the tea.
In terms of food, again, I understand there are a lot of similarities. For example, pulao in India, naan, samosa. You have similar items in Uzbek food?
Yes, of course. Our cuisine are, we have a lot of the similarities. The pulao, of course, it's probably pulao traveled from Uzbekistan to India, and likewise the samosa also. We call it samsa. And here, in Delhi and in some other cities, one of the most popular restaurants is Bukhara. And so, you when you go there, you find the different types of kebabs, for example, which is again very much characteristic for our cuisine.
As India has worked, and India and Uzbekistan have worked to work out the new relationship after Uzbekistan gained its independence in 1991. What's your assessment of what has been the progress, what has been success, what are the continuing challenges that we face?
India was one of the first countries who recognized the independence of Uzbekistan, and who has been with us throughout the years, and for which we very much appreciate this friendship. So when we talk about the Uzbek and Uzbek-Indian relations, we have to stress a couple of the factors that characterize this relationship. This is, first of all, it is the close friendship, the mutually deep trust to each other. And we have, this trust has been, strengthened for over the years, and we have always enjoyed, India and Uzbekistan, we have always enjoyed and continue to enjoy mutual support in international, regional forums, at bilateral level. Of course, our relations has always had the progressive tendency. From the very beginning of our the independence, after the establishment of diplomatic relations between India and Uzbekistan, we had a very fruitful relationship in all areas. Mm-hmm. And I must say that last year there was a historical event in Uzbek-Indian relationship, and our Honorable President, His Excellency Mr. Shavkat Mirziyoyev, paid his first state visit to India on 30th of September and 1st of October, which took place. And it has created a new era of Uzbek-Indian relationship. So when we discussed, exchanged views on the outcomes of the visit, one of our Indian colleagues, said it has not only created a new page, but it has created a new book of Uzbek.
And also I found that he was here, as you mentioned, in September, October, and then he came back in January for January of this year. So that is very unusual to make two visits in such a short span of time. How do you explain that?
Yes, of course, the state visit took place on the 30th of September, 1st of October, and during which we have signed very important documents. It was in political agreements and agreements in investment and economic area, in cultural and humanitarian areas. So it has been truly very much productive, the visit. And of course, the second time our Honorable President paid the working visit in January, and he was the chief guest at the Vibrant Gujarat International Investment Forum. To put it simply, what the frequency of the visits from could tell, it can tell about how close the relationship between Uzbekistan and India are today. So that is the very clear indicative that the visits at such a highest level take place in a short span of a period of time. Mm-hmm. So that is very much clear indicative of the closeness of the relationship.
So trade between India and Uzbekistan has of course increased, but still only about $300 million, which is not very large. What are some of the challenges that you find in expanding the trade and economic relationship?
Yeah, I fully agree with you that the trade volume that we currently have is very much below the potential that our countries could achieve. So the target has been already put by our leaders, by the leaders of Uzbekistan and India, to achieve 1 billion target, within a couple of years, and we are working on towards that target. And of course, if we use our potential effectively and fully, even the 1 billion, we can make several billions easily in increasing bilateral trade. And to achieve this target, we have already started working closely with our Indian partners. First of all, we are we are expanding the legal basis for making the trade easy and effective. So we are now working on the preferential trade arrangements, and we are also exploring the options of expanding the logistics and the communications, the options, and also see easing the market access to each other.
It has been pointed out that one of the challenges is connectivity. because India is working on enhancing connectivity to Afghanistan, to Central Asia, through Iran, working on the Chabahar port, and connectivity through Afghanistan itself, if that is consolidated, would also ease access for India and Central Asia and Uzbekistan in both directions. So in that framework, how are you looking at the peace process in Afghanistan and its evolution and its potential for contributing to regional connectivity, regional trade?
Yes, it's a very interesting, the question you put forward. So I would like to start with the following. In January, we had a very much, I could say historical and significant for event that took place in Samarkand. For the first time, we have created a format, India Central Asia dialogue, at the level of ministers of foreign affairs, with participation of Afghanistan. So the first dialogue took place the beginning of January, 12th January in Samarkand this year, and this has been the joint initiative of Uzbekistan and India. And one of the key topics that was discussed during the dialogue was, of course, the connectivity. The connectivity is very much important for us. Uzbekistan is not only landlocked, we are double landlocked country. So therefore, the communication projects, the connectivity, the lines that can help us to reach international markets are in our interest. Therefore, we are keenly interested in expanding the connectivity options, including between Uzbekistan, Central Asia, and India, including via Afghanistan. Of course, different connectivity projects are on the table, different projects are being developed, and we are also part of these connectivity efforts. There is a railway that operates from Termiz to Mazar-e-Sharif, and we are now working on expanding the railway to Herat, from Mazar-e-Sharif and Herat, and with the aim of hope of that this railway will reach to beyond the Afghanistan border. That creates more connectivity options. And of course, India has put the initiative of the project of Chabahar, and we also see this project positively as an opportunity for expanding connectivity between India and Central Asia.
Yes, I remember, because Uzbekistan itself had suffered the challenge of terrorism emanating from Afghanistan at the time when Taliban and others were in control there. And I also recall that India had worked to build a 300-kilometer power transmission line, which connected eventually the last segment of power coming from Uzbekistan to Kabul. So in that sense, the two countries had a common interest and had worked together. But talking of other regional connectivity projects, there's also a lot of interest in the kind of connectivity that China is trying to build through Central Asia and beyond, also to Europe, the Belt and Road Initiative and others. So how are you looking at that connectivity project?
As I mentioned, the Uzbekistan and Central Asia, for us, the connectivity projects are very much crucial to reach international markets, to realize, to implement our trade and economic potential.
One of the important organizations that Uzbekistan has been part of is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, that brings together countries in Central Asia, Russia, China, India, and several others. So how does Uzbekistan assess the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, its role and its potential?
Yes, you're right. We are the member of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and we actively participate in the work of this organization. And one of the important structures of the Shanghai Organization, RATS, it's a counterterrorism center of Shanghai Organization, the headquarters is situated in Tashkent. And also when we talk about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, I must say that we have fully supported the membership of India to become a full-fledged member of Shanghai Cooperation Organizations. We see it as a big contribution to increase the opportunities and potential of the organization. And of course, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is, we see it as a very important platform to deepen and to deepen the regional cooperation in the bigger, Central Asia, South Asia, and the Eurasian region. And already we see a lot of benefits of this cooperation. And, of course, the issues that we have already discussed, like connectivity, and the fight against, transboundary challenges, fight against, terrorism, organized crime, and taking joint efforts for sustainable development, and to deal with environmental issues, and to expand the educational and humanitarian cooperation has been the very active directions of
the Prime Minister of India will be going in June to Kyrgyzstan for a meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And you also referred in your comments to the challenge of environment. And many countries in the world are dealing with the consequences of climate change, the environment. And one area where also there's been some consequence has been in the Aral Sea, where the southern part of Aral Sea is in Uzbekistan. What led to this challenge, and how is Uzbekistan now trying to deal with the problem of lowering of availability of water in the Aral Sea area?
You're right. Climate change has become, simple reality now. If some time back, some people were, maybe doubtful about the consequences, but I believe today we all know and we are all convinced that, the climate change is already taking place, and it has creating a lot of challenges and issues for practically every nation in the world. And of course, the Central Asia, Uzbekistan, we are also facing the challenges of climate change, environmental, the challenges. And of course, one of the biggest environmental challenge for Uzbekistan and for Central Asia as a whole is the Aral Sea tragedy. Of course, this is, I can call it, tragedy of Aral Sea, that within the one generation period we have seen one of the biggest lakes, the sea, has become, has shrunk to the level of, to the critical level. And fully realizing the consequences of this problem, the government of Uzbekistan, we have been taking consistent efforts to save the Aral Sea, to address the ecological and environmental consequence that caused by the drying of the Aral Sea. And we actively participate in the work of the fund, International Fund for Saving the Aral Sea, and also on the initiative of our president, we have established a trust fund to tackle the Aral Sea problem.
The world economy is going through a lot of flux and change, and countries are adapting to that. What are the kind of economic reforms that are being looked at and changes in Uzbekistan to deal with your challenges and to deal with the changes happening at the global level?
We have embarked a new stage of economic and political and social reforms in our country for the last more than 2 years under the leadership of our President, we have been implementing wide-scale reforms in every sphere of our society. So if we talk about the economic reforms, first of all, I should mention that one of the important decisions that our government has taken recently. So in 2017, we have moved to full convertibility of national currency. In the past, we had some the limitations of convertibility, but the government has decided to liberalize the currency market, and this has been welcomed by international organizations and international business community. And also we have taken a number of steps to further liberalize our economy, to create more favorable conditions for business and for investment. And we this year 2019 has been announced in Uzbekistan as a year of active investment and social development, so which again shows the attention that our government is attaching to the issues of entrepreneurship and investment. And we have also our government has also created a number of new free economic zones, and where the entrepreneurs and investors can enjoy numerous benefits, including tax holidays and other benefits. But in principle, the main goal is to ensure the further liberalization of economy and to further modernization of economy, and to create more and more opportunities for not only for our national business but also for international businesses. And we are very much happy that a lot of Indian companies are showing big interest to do business in Uzbekistan. They are already, some of them already entered the market, and many of them already in the process of concluding agreements and entering our market.
Well, I wish you success with that effort, and as our discussions showed, there is deep cultural, political, economic linkage between India and Uzbekistan, and there are challenges to be met, especially through enhanced regional connectivity, but there's also a lot of convergence of interest as we deal with the challenges emerging from Afghanistan, as we look at building new equations in Central Asia and beyond. Ambassador Arziev, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.